And the Flint water crisis has forced communities all over the country to take notice. And given our history, that's maybe no more true than right here in Toledo. 13 ABC's Jeff Smith investigates whether what happened in Michigan could also happen here.
Watershed, an event or a period marking a change or a turning point. And that is Flint in a nutshell. And that change is making people sick. Given Toledo's history with the algal bloom on Lake Erie, could we be headed in that direction too? Toledo and Neil Christ is not comfortable with our drinking water. He says since the algal crisis of 2014, he's avoided drinking water from the tap.
There's no question in my mind that they are producing, the best product they can, but all it takes is a scare like that, and you get gun shy on using tap water.
Here's the Flint.
What rocked Flint's water was a change in service and a lack of treatment. Flint once drew water from Detroit's system, but switched to the Flint River in 2014 and didn't treat the water properly. That left the pipes unprotected and lead leached into the water supply.
We often take infrastructure for granted.
Dr. Terry Olson says her studies show that even slight swings in a water distribution system can affect what ends up in your glass.
We think it's working well, but the truth of the matter is that even small changes can have ripple effects and cause these kinds of crises.
A small change, like an algal bloom? Toledo's water treatment plant administrator says no.
It's just good practice to be consistent in the water quality and, keep doing what we do from day to day.
Andy McClure says you can't compare what's going on in Flint with Toledo's battle with algae and the threat of microcystin in the water.
The algal bloom was more of a new contaminant of concern, and there really wasn't too much known about it at the time, and we're still we're still ramping up on the learning curve.
Since we started reporting about the Flint crisis to you, we have been inundated with questions and comments about our infrastructure, our water pipes, the stuff you can't see underground. Is there lead down there? We went to the local plumbers and pipe fitters union to find out.
This is made of lead. This is a soft lead service line that you would see typically under the ground. And that's not something here in Northwest Ohio and certainly in the city of Toledo that we've seen. We've not been installing them since at least 1950.
But look at this. According to the city of Toledo's engineering department, more than half of the city's 1,100 miles of water lines were installed before 1950. Most of those, in red, run through downtown Toledo and stretch out in all directions. But that's not a concern for the person in charge of water distribution.
No, because they're operating fine. So why do you want to go into the ground and rip out pipe where you haven't had brakes on and they're operating just fine?
Because
there's
it's 2016 and we have new technology? I don't.
But you're spending more money on pipes that are doing great. So you're pulling something out of the ground that you know is working and is working well.
The city of Toledo last checked for lead contamination back in September of 2014. 50 homes were checked. 49 of those samples came back under the detection level. The only one in question, well, that level, the city says, was still too low to kick the EPA into action. Now, we wanted to do our own lead testing. We had checks throughout the city. We sent their samples to a local lab, and in their results, we got no detection of any lead. That's music to the ears of towns that depend on Glass City water.
Toledo's system is very strong. It has old piping going down its residential streets, but inside the plant, it's been modernized. It's a great plant.
Sylvania Mayor Craig Stow says swapping out the old pipes for the new ones, like they're proposing in Flint, is unrealistic here.
When we replace a street, we replace the water line, more likely than not, especially when we have older galvanized pipes that might have that lead solder in them. And they close up, the pipes get smaller. But that, in Toledo, that's a monumental task.
Monumental was a word that former EPA Administrator Christy Todd Whitman used last month in regards to the Flint water crisis. She called it a monumental failure of government at all levels.
When something happens, the public will say, why didn't they do this proactively? Yeah. On the other hand, when someone says, we want to raise your water bill by 5%, they say, oh, this is horrible.
For years, Dr. Glenn Diger's been a consultant in the water industry, even lending his expertise to Flint this month. And he says towns like Toledo should be taking notes. He says this is a watershed moment.
when there is an incident, where there's a change, that is a time when one should really take a comprehensive look.
It's the uncertainty more than anything else. You know, when is the next issue gonna pop up? And I mean, we're talking water. We're talking something you can't live without.
There's no reason that they have to have any kind of a fear that they could have lead in their water, leaching from any of their pipes, because of our treatment process and how that does coat the lines and makes it safe for them to drink that water.
Toledo's next scheduled system-wide test for lead will be in 2017. Jeff Smith, 13 ABC Action News.
And another note on this story, Toledo leaders telling us that the city's tap water is more regulated than bottled water. We checked that out. Researchers from the Mayo Clinic say both do go through a series of safety checks. EPA regulates tap water, the FDA oversees bottled water.